I'm here with Dr. Frank Genco, and Dr. Genco, it was so great to meet you the other day. You have one of the strongest messages that I've heard regarding the whole COVID crisis, and you've been one of the strongest advocates that I know of regarding open Texas completely. I wanted to hear from you because with your medical background and everything, people are going to say, well, we can't do this because of some medical reasons, but you're going to say just the opposite. So I'm going to give you free form. Go ahead.
So it'll take about 10 minutes to just get through this concept, but the idea is that the crisis is not medical, it's political. There are no medical or scientific justifications for the restrictions. The medical and scientific basis that you've been told is largely propaganda full of distractions and misinformation. The restrictions are not helpful, they're harmful and unnecessary. You're seeing a lot of problems that people are having from wearing masks unnecessarily. As a physician, I could go point by point, and I've done that on my Facebook page, addressing each medical distraction, including the ones that are propaganda by the AMA that I get daily, and I posted all those and what the problems are. But this crisis really is not medical. I want to take a step back so we don't miss the forest paying too much attention to the trees. So I'd like you to visualize a pyramid, and on that pyramid, just like your traffic light, we're looking at a green base, yellow, red, a little black dot on top that we're going to hit also. And on this, the largest base, the green, this was actually taken from a survey of data that we did in a study in Colleyville. This one I can't guarantee is accurate. This one I can, because that's on graph paper that I actually counted little boxes. But the idea is that this is the same data, which is only 14% are in this red group. 50%, which clearly is shown here, is in the green group. Green, we're going to get into, is all about go. So if you look at this, and if you look at the population, you feel like these are equal, and they're not equal. You may have trouble even believing that that's equal, and I went ahead and took those other two, the yellow group and the red group, just to show that they do fit in there. That black is the background, and the little extras can fit in there. So this is accurate, and the idea is that we need more people in this green group. So at the base, the largest green group, just to define who these people are, that's independent thinking people. They know enough of the truth that I'm telling you is correct. They conclude that the best thing is just open up the economy without restrictions. None of this should have happened in the first place. They understand that media, mainstream media, is propaganda. They don't trust anything out of the New York Times and CNN and some of these other news sources. So, and also they recognize that your free speech is being censored on Twitter, as the president experienced, as well as rampantly on Facebook and many other media. They understand that there's a militarized police force that's enforcing illegal and unconstitutional orders, and they look at that as that's criminal behavior, even if it's done by the police, like we're seeing with Chauvin on George Floyd. And the three officers that were with him, and all of that police precinct that didn't arrest him for at least 3 days, still haven't arrested the other three. And was it wrong for them to burn down that precinct? There was not a single policeman in that precinct who was not tainted by those dirty cops. It's not an isolated incident when a gang of 4 people assassinate a person while they're holding people at bay, while they're being told by regular citizens, you're killing him. So above that green is a smaller but still very large yellow, and in this survey that we did in Colleyville, it worked out to, it was an informal survey of 117 people. We found 36% of the people said that open within a week or so with some restrictions. Whereas the red said don't open until at least a month, and everybody, the county, everybody says that you safely can.
When was the survey done? And so for the context of that, because for the 1 week that you...
That was as of April 23rd.
Okay, so we were already well into this.
Right, yeah,
okay.
people knew.
Yeah.
So that group can sense, that yellow group can sense something's not right. A lot of people are in that group. They're still misled by propaganda and authority. They still want to believe a little bit in authority, although they're kind of coming away from it a little bit when they see, time after time they're wrong. These are people that have statements, you may be one of them, who have been caught saying things like we can open in phases with common sense restrictions, like social distancing, frequent hand washing, sanitizing, face masks, until we get a vaccine. And then we continue in a new normal beyond that. These are people that need to be reached and helped into the green zone. Near the top, the red, is a smaller group, about 1 in 7 people, and these still believe propaganda media and authorities, and they believe whatever they're told to believe. They don't know that media is controlled by a very small group of individuals whose goals are, one, to capture attention with mindless distractions so they can sell commercial time, and number two is to promote their agenda via misinformation, which they routinely do. They have these agendas. Mainstream media floods us with bad analysis of junk science, bad modeling, ineffective restrictions. Media keeps this rule-following group fearful by showcasing a parade of medical experts, authorities, government officials peddling information that's garbage in, garbage out. Gigo. Rule followers want to trust, not question authority. Let me give you an example. Last year, they were told facial coverings were bad. They were worn by oppressed Muslim women. They were against them. This year, face masks are good. They're necessary. Everybody should wear one. You're going to kill me and my grandmother if you don't wear one. Next year, there's going to be video cameras everywhere, like in China, with artificial intelligence and networks, and it's going to be outlawed that you can't wear a facial covering. And again, these same people are going to come back and reverse again and say, you can't do that, you can't wear a face mask for the greater good. Straight out of 1984, the book, if you've read that. So these are the popular meme Karen, the red group. They will report you to authorities, even if the laws are unconstitutional. They support police even when the police are enforcing illegal and unconstitutional orders. Their talking points parrot what propaganda media feeds them. They may still, even today, be heard saying flatten the curve so that healthcare systems don't get overwhelmed, long after everyone knows that was not necessary. They may have moved on to stop the spread, with absolutely no understanding that the area under the curve, the total number of people who eventually get the disease, the inevitable spread till herd immunity is reached, will be the same, even if it takes a bit longer to get there, which, by the way, is of no benefit. They'll do nonsensical things. You see these people all over without understanding why. They'll wear a mask, usually incorrectly. I went into a restaurant, and at first I was saying, let me see if I can find someone wearing a mask wrong. And I was like, wrong, wrong, wrong. And then I went and said, let me see if I can find someone who's wearing it right, and I couldn't find anybody wearing it right. They're wearing the mask in their own home, alone in their car, out walking the dog. They may wear gloves for an hour with no understanding that that is of absolutely no benefit. They'll repeatedly disinfect their own home, frequently wash their own hands, and keep after their children, creating distress in the home, with no understanding that that decreases in no way preventing near certain exposures that are already in your home. It may be impossible for people in the green group to talk to people in this red group. They may think that what I'm saying is heresy. There's not a lot of common ground between someone that's green like me and someone who's red. Our paradigms are so different. You probably know friends who have strained relationships over this very issue. Very vastly different perspectives on this cold virus. So our green base is largest and growing. It needs to grow for everyone's sake, not just the people in the green group who know that it needs to grow. If we're to remain a nation of free people, green says go, just like the traffic light. Enough with the restrictions. It was a mistake to ever have them in the first place. Let's learn from this and never do it again, because that's the plan, phase 4, which Governor Abbott has announced, but you can read about it. The group that desperately needs to be reached is the yellow group that says open with restrictions. I'm willing to trade some liberty for a little security. I accept the new normal and a future with increasing restrictions. The yellow group have some fear, but they're also capable of understanding. They can and should be reached. The red group is small, but controlled by fear. They shout stop, maintain vital restrictions so no one dies until my town, county, state, federal restrictions are lifted, as recommended by the CDC, WHO, Bill Gates, Fauci. A vaccine's developed, universally administered, an army of contact tracers, over 4,000 in just this state, plus support staff, plus the National Guard, can enforce quarantine 14 days at a pop. As hard as it is to reach people in the red group, the silver lining is no one has to. It's much more productive spending your time educating people in the yellow group so that bad leaders can be changed. And bad leadership is easy to recognize as overeager tyrant supporters of restrictions in this pandemic. And they need to be voted out. Once restrictions are officially lifted, the red group dutifully follows. And that's why you don't have to reach them. And that's why this is so important to understand, is the green group has got to reach a yellow group person and bring them in and increase this. Once we reach a critical mass, because right now we're here at 50%, we can identify and elect better leaders. The red group will follow the new leader. Doesn't matter who the leader is. The black tip, may I notice a little black tip on top right there. It's there. It's not a very big portion. there's probably 1 million people for every one of those black tip globalists that planned this global economic crisis to seize greater power, greater control and raw power. They had planned this years ago. We have evidence from a paper reported in 2010. We have a conference that they started in 2008. I don't know how long before that they were in it. That's as far back as I was able to find this back. They did do this. COVID-19 is also known as SARS-2. Before that there was MERS, which is just another coronavirus, which is a cold virus, one of 200 cold viruses that mutates. So MERS and SARS were test runs. A lot of people don't remember that on those cold viruses, millions of animals were slaughtered in other countries because of MERS and SARS. That was a test run for this. And this is not just in the United States, and it's not just to get rid of Donald Trump. This is a worldwide thing. The black tip represents this incredibly small, wealthy, powerful club, like Bill Gates, who's on record recommending a depopulation of 10 to 15%, or about 1 billion people. To put that in perspective, that's 1,000 million people, or 10 times the losses in World War II, 100 times worse than the Holocaust in numbers. His supposed philanthropy has caused countless vaccine and other injuries around the world. The internet is full of it, where they go through what he's done in Africa, in India. There's countries that are saying he should be brought up by an international tribunal, including there was an announcement in Italy. India also wants to have this man arrested and prosecuted. There's African nations that should be on that as well, and they probably will eventually. But Gates wants to openly advocate for COVID-19 vaccine with a permanent tattoo to be given universally. Admission to trains, planes, the stadium, even your grocery store will be dependent on you having that. Fauci's not far behind. He wants like an ID. Gates actually wants it in the vaccine itself. Bill Gates is behind the reimagining of education with disasters like Common Core. There's more than 1 million people in the world for every globalist. And these globalists are looking to seek a new world order, which, by the way, you can see online, was actually published recently by the United Nations. So you look up United Nations New World Order. It has 17 goals that are outlined in 169 targets. And if you look at it, it sounds wonderful. Instead of capitalism, they say they want happyism, or something insane. And then they describe a number of ways to get there. And some of them sound nice, but if you look at the details of how they want to track people, it's downright scary. This is not conspiracy theory. You can read the things yourself, and it's written in plain language. They're published by groups like the Rockefeller Foundation, the American Enterprise Institute, the Global Business Network, prestigious universities like Johns Hopkins, Harvard that receive huge financial contributions, the globalists that control the leadership of many organizations like the pay-to-play FDA, CDC, the NIH, Fauci was big on that one, WHO, which has been hugely discredited. Donald Trump finally said we're just going to pull all funding from them, which we were the major funder. And the UN, which again, the United Nations was being funded primarily by the United States. We just had Donald Trump say, we're going to take our level down to what the next country would go up to. So the other countries were paying 2%, and some of them weren't even paying their 2%. The United States was up like 24, 27%. Germany went up to like 16 or 19%, so we came down to that. But we should have said, you know what, the heck with it. We should go down to less than 2%. I have a list of names. Some of these guys are in their 90s, so they don't have much more, but George Soros, Henry Kissinger, Rupert Murdoch, they're tossing the baton to Bill Gates, who's carrying it. Who's the next one? Michael Bloomberg, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, not Elon Musk. Way to go, we had the shot to the space station today, and a very successful launch. In summary, this pyramid model, the green base is go, good. In the yellow, we got proceed with caution. They're afraid, but they're reachable, and they need to be reached. The red screams stop, they're terrified. You may not be able to reason with this very emotional group. The good news is, they're loyal to whoever's in control. The green and yellow group just have to do a better job electing better leadership. The red's going to follow. The black tip are the globalists. They should be identified, and we need to get their power diminished. They're supported by an army of local tiny tyrants. They're not all billionaires, so you have people that seize power when they can just because they're sociopaths, like Dallas County Judge Clay Jenkins, who needs to go. Should be recalled. Judge Eric Moy, who ruthlessly attacked our heroine, Shelley Luther, who just spoke today in South Lake. Also, medical bureaucrats from the 35-year Washington, D.C. 6th president, insider, Dr. Tony Fauci, to our own local tyrant, our own local medical bureaucrats like Justin Fairless, who works tirelessly trying to give credibility to nonsense, despite the obvious reality that it's plain for anyone who cares to see. And I've offered to debate him, and he can't because he has too much invested in his career. He's the EMS medical director. He's on top of the overseeing the paramedics and the firemen, but also the police and the SWAT team. These teams that we're seeing are in Minnesota that are actually breaking the windows and inciting the riot. You know, it's not the protesters that are shooting the rubber bullets or the tear gas or the shockwaves or the smoke bombs or any number of things that they do, or firing into cars, incendiary devices, and lighting the cars on fires. That's all been shown to be police. But I've said that they should not be supported if they're doing illegal and unconstitutional activities or enforcing illegal or unconstitutional laws. Then they're criminals. Police and the military are pawns that are used by the globalists generally. This group needs to be reminded of the 10 sentences, that's the U.S. Constitution Bill of Rights. Also the Nuremberg trials, where you're responsible for your own activities. You can't just say, I was just following orders, or I needed that for my job. You have to be responsible. If you're a policeman, please read the Bill of Rights. Do not follow unconstitutional orders. It's a plea, please. Mainstream media is a propaganda branch of globalists. Increasingly, they censor social media. We need to shift away from Facebook, Chrome, Google, Apple. Since Steve Jobs died, Apple is a different company. It becomes increasingly obvious they're doing the globalist bidding. When unnecessary restrictions are enforced, and that is the time for civil disobedience to become necessary. Do not get tested. There's no advantage to getting tested. If you have a low oxygen, just check your oxygen. And if that's low, then consider testing if you're looking at getting admitted to the hospital because you need oxygen. But leave your phone at home sometimes. Look into how do you make or buy a Faraday cage, because the 6-foot distancing has nothing to do with droplets or aerosol. It has to do with how well they can track your phone from the satellite. And right now when people are saying, hey, I got 6 feet, and they look at you because you're not wearing a mask in the store, that's going to change once they have this contact tracing and people know that they're going to get put in a timeout for 2 weeks, 14 days again, if they came within 6 feet of somebody else who was reported by the contact tracer anonymously. So now people are actually going to be getting mean and angry about that 6-foot rule. So you understand where the 6-foot rule came from. It has to do with your phone. It has nothing to do. None of this has anything to do medically. Delete Chrome, replace it with Brave. Change Google to DuckDuckGo. Change your YouTube to BitChute. Let's get away from these companies that are committed to tracing us. I'm not sure of who to go from Facebook. It was such a powerful thing, but I've heard that there are alternatives and we need to look for those alternatives. Zoom and TikTok are already being traced and they're owned by China. So those are not your friends. If a contact tracer calls you, give them the names of bad leaders. Have a list ready in your pocket. Not your friends and neighbors. Do not name any friends and neighbors. I'm not advocating violence, like it's obvious that the police are doing when they incite and orchestrate riots, when they escalate violence, whether it's against an individual, like by putting their knee on his neck. They didn't have to cut off his airway. They cut off his blood supply to his head. But don't cooperate. So when he said he couldn't breathe, he wasn't getting oxygen to his head. And then he passed out, and then he remained 3 minutes. So they are violent, and they are working as a gang. But don't cooperate when your rights are being violated. And Martin Luther, finishing with a quote, said, "Peace if possible, but truth at all costs." Let's be honest, people. Thank you.